You're listening to the continuation of Cross-Section of a Human Heart, a memoir of early adulthood, by Abi Wurdeman, read for you by the author. Each story in this book can stand alone, but if you prefer to listen to them in order, you can find links to previous chapters in the description below. Three. That time I studied drama with three strangers in a van. After my summer of rejection in Lubbock, I moved to Goshen, Indiana, where I'd been hired to work for a touring theater company. That chapter of my life sits in a neglected closet somewhere in the farmost corner of my memory, a door I occasionally happen upon and open so I can sift through the boxes on the other side, saying, "Holy crap, I completely forgot I had all this stuff." In fact, talking about my year with Bridgework Theater always feels like I'm rehashing some weird dream I had. I kept driving around in this van with the same three people, except on weekends when I lived in this farmhouse in this tiny Mennonite town, but the lady I rented a room from was hardly ever there because she was following migratory birds across the country. And sometimes we'd go clubbing in Indianapolis, and I kept doing the same anti-bullying play every day for kids who lived in cornfields, and then we watched like 6 hours of Lost before bed. Some days, I'm not even confident that bridge work actually happened. I have to look up my former tour mates on Facebook to make sure they truly exist and aren't just characters invented by my subconscious during a fever dream. The Bridgework actors were split into 2 teams of 4, meaning I spent every moment with the same 3 people. We stuffed ourselves in the van together, unloaded and constructed the set together, performed together, ate together, and spent our evenings in the hotel, binge-watching our favorite shows together. Our lives were unavoidably centered around one another. There was almost no escape. Bullying is apparently a problem almost exclusively in rural communities because we usually wound up staying in a comfort inn next to the Applebee's across from the gas station, adjacent to a giant field of whichever crop the high school mascot was named after. If we wanted to socialize outside our tiny group, our best option would be to hit up the greeter at the local Walmart. But even just getting there would call for a group meeting about whether or not the others were willing to be stranded at the hotel without a van. For people who spent all their time traveling, our day-to-day world was very small, and inevitably, we ran into drama. I will not be telling you about the drama because, as I now realize, it is not interesting. Like all drama, it wasn't based on anything real or anything that matters, and telling the story only makes a person sound like the teenage ditz character in a 90s sitcom. Then she told him about what she thought I said, so I told her what he said she said before he knew what they said. It's a poorly constructed story. There's no meaningful conflict, no stakes, no real dilemmas or decisions, no rising action or resolution. Only pages and pages of shallow dialogue. A chorus of moody voices discussing a conflict that does not seem to actually exist. Drama is, first of all, the product of living in a very small world. This was the first thing we had working against us. For months on end, our lives centered around the same 3 people, the same 15-passenger van, the same few plays, day after day after day. In the real world, it's no big deal if your coworker snags the last box of Lucky Charms in the break room, knowing it's your favorite. You get annoyed, but then you do your job and go home to worry about your cat's kidney failure or the upcoming elections or your Etsy store. On tour, though, that box of Lucky Charms eats at your mind all day because the jerk who took it is your coworker and your happy hour hangout buddy and the cat you come home to. This person you didn't even know 2 months ago is suddenly everyone in your life, which makes everyone in your life a Lucky Charm-stealing jagweed. See how effortlessly one can descend into madness? To add to it, you get bored on tour. We'd be in the van anywhere from 4 to 9 hours a day. Just sitting. In a van. Driving across Ohio. Now, there are options. You can watch a movie on Abby's worn-down community laptop. You can knit. You can write. You can read. You can fold origami. Or, when you get sick of all that stuff, you can pop in your headphones and imagine up some drama. I remember arriving at the hotel one night and seeing the other woman on my team give the stink eye to one of our guys as he climbed out of the van. He'd been asleep for the whole trip, so I couldn't figure out when or how he managed to piss her off. And yet, "Do you ever do that thing," she asked me, "where you imagine how a conversation with someone would go and then you get mad at what you think they would say, hypothetically, even though they never actually said it?" Who hasn't, am I right? I laughed empathetically. She didn't laugh with me. She shook her head and pursed her lips. "I can't believe he would say that." "Wait, you mean the thing he didn't actually say?" "He would have said it." "Maybe you should have this conversation with him for real? Respond to what he actually says?" "I can't. He's the one who started it." "He's the one who started the argument in your head?" Then she gave me the stink eye, and I assume she started having fights with me in her imagination soon after, because before long I was the target of vague accusations that probably would have made more sense had I been present for the full discussion. I make fun, but I make fun knowing that the woman deserves points for honesty. All I was seeing in my bridgework tourmate was an exaggerated version of what we all put ourselves through when our worlds are too small. In fact, I see her hours spent obsessing and speculating and fixating as a testament to the human mind's desire for work. We want challenges. We want problems to solve. When those opportunities aren't immediately available, we create them. Or, if a conflict already exists, as I'll admit it kind of did in her case, but the conflict is, say, sleeping, the mind still wants to forge ahead, test solutions, predict obstacles, work it out. I don't consider myself a particularly dramatic person. That's not to say I've never had my moments, but I come from German English farmers and teachers. We're a low-key people. If I was regularly blowing things out of proportion in adulthood, everyone I love would disown me. Nevertheless, I still find myself imagining non-existent disaster from time to time, or creating problems to keep my mind busy. Most often, I invent problems out of fear. If I have a desire or ambition that scares the shit out of me, good news. It's super easy to think myself out of moving forward. All I have to do is fixate on huge, unanswerable questions like, what decision would I most likely regret in 10 years? As long as I obsess over solving the unsolvable, I don't have to deal with the scarier problems that arise with actual effort. Problems like, actual failure. On tour, it was always more glamorous to imagine a web of deceit, insanity, and passion than to deal with the real, uglier issues at hand. Things like, maybe we're all too exhausted to be empathetic anymore, and maybe that relationship wasn't what you thought it was, and maybe she's right. Maybe I really am an asshole, and I've been unwilling to confront that part of myself. Creative types get the most credit for drumming up drama, and that's probably fair, though most would claim it's because we crave attention. I'm more inclined to suggest it's a matter of having a sharp and agile imagination. Even if you don't draw attention to your narrative, many of us invent drama for ourselves on a regular basis because it feels safer. If we can designate someone else as the villain, we can reassure ourselves we're the hero. If we can conjure up unconquerable storms and enchanted walls, we can make it okay to fail or even not try. The downside is we never move forward. Drama is a force that keeps us circling in the same metaphorical van with the same cast of characters, complaining the same complaints. It's a fun adventure at first, but eventually, you're going to want to park somewhere and set up a regular, forward-moving life. I loved my time with Bridgework. It was a haze of fun and mess and mistakes and so much unnecessary emotion, but it taught me a lot about being an idiot, and it's a touchstone of complicated self-discovery. That time I can point to saying, no, I've never done shrooms, but I did drunkenly argue with a Mennonite, a Buddhist, and an atheist in a King of Prussia hotel room. Everybody needs to have that story somewhere in their history. History being the operative word. Things that are not drama. Drama is a very real, weird part of your 20s. It can also be part of your 30s and beyond if you don't learn to evaluate it and nip it in the bud. That said, not every negative thing you experience in your 20s is drama. You know that, of course you know that. But inevitably you will at some point have a very real conflict, and the person on the other side of that conflict will try to get out of dealing with it by calling you dramatic. It can be difficult to trust your own judgment when someone you love and trust tells you over and over again that your problem is not real. So here's a quick list to refer back to when you genuinely cannot tell if you're making something out of nothing. Things that are drama. The explanation you made up for why your significant other isn't texting you back. The things you think your friends say when you're not in the room. Your theory that your crush loves you but is afraid of their feelings. The story you invented for why Madison gave you that look. Your refusal to go to Travis's party because of that look Madison gave you. Gossip. Gossip that is 80% your own speculation. Nearly everything you say and do in response to jealousy or insecurity. That 1990s TV movie where Kelly Martin kills Tori Spelling and takes over her life. If you're too young for that reference, I'm so sorry you missed out. It was good stuff. Things that are not drama. Feelings another person does not understand. Refusing to be around someone who makes you feel unsafe. Feeling angry or upset that someone was up in your space when you never said they could be. Cutting ties with someone who demonstrates no interest or concern for your feelings. Feeling neglected by a friend or significant other who is, in fact, neglecting you. Acknowledging problems other people are afraid to discuss. Crying because you feel hurt. Needing a hug. Hi, I'm Abi Wurdeman, author of Cross Section of a Human Heart, and the voice you've been listening to for the last 15 minutes or so. I am releasing a story from the book in audio on YouTube every Sunday, followed by a little bit of author's commentary, bonus stories, that sort of thing. So if you want to make sure you catch the next one, definitely subscribe. And if you're just now discovering this and you want to listen to the previous ones, you'll find links in the description below. I also wanted to take a second to apologize, or, not apologize, it is what it is, but acknowledge the chaos of my background. We just moved. So my office right now is just a bunch of boxes vomiting up office supplies and this thing, which is a blender that I used to make homemade paper 5 years ago. Haven't used it since, but I had a lot of fun. So, it's here just in case. This is what we learn about ourselves when we move. Anyway, so my follow-up on today's story, there are two things I want to talk about. First, I want to tell you about the Lucky Charms stealing jagweed. So this is actually one of the coolest people that I toured with. And the Lucky Charms thing was there's really more playful rivalry than anything. We both really loved Lucky Charms, and he was more of a morning person. So if we were at a continental breakfast and the Lucky Charms went fast, he would most likely get them before I did. He also hoarded them, but he shared them when I was having a bad day. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to tell you about him. What I wanted to tell you is that he was passionate about origami and really good at it. He would, we would have these long drives, and so he'd be, he a lot of times would sit in the front passenger seat, and it would be like a 4 or 6 hour drive. And the whole time he would just be up there folding this really intricate, beautiful, fascinating creature. And then when he was done, he would just reach into the back seat and hand it to somebody. So there were, I think, 2 or 3 times when I was just having a crap day and just sitting back there like being all grumpy with my headphones in, staring out the window and hating everything. And then this beautiful, complicated dragon would just suddenly appear in my lap. And it was just this nice, happy little gift. And now this guy is a professional origamiist. I don't know if that's what you call them, but he does it for a living. He folds origami. I don't mean that in a dismissive way, because I've seen him do it. It's incredibly complicated and outstanding. And he does. We don't really talk anymore, so I learned this through social media, but I've seen, he'll do installations at big important buildings. It's so cool, and I am thrilled that this is the path that his life took. I love it when people when people are able to really tap into something that brings them a lot of joy and make a life from it, whether it means they're getting paid for it or not. It makes me happy. And I wish that for you too. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that, so I put this book together when I was 34 years old. I'm 42 now. I'm 41. Slow down. I haven't read a lot of these stories in a long time, so I don't always know what's coming. But with this one, I was very glad to discover that I followed up the story about drama with a breakdown of sort of understanding what is drama and what isn't drama. Because I think that's important for all of us in general, right? A lot of times, drama being this problem we create out of nothing, this thing that we don't really need to, make a big deal out of, and not drama being someone else telling us that we're being dramatic as a means of dismissing or controlling us. And the reason I'm really glad that I did that is because I think it's very relevant right now, especially for anyone living in the US under an administration that is constantly telling us that what we're seeing is not really happening. These aren't human rights violations. We're protecting America. Or, we're not stifling your freedom of speech. We're just, trying to protect America. It's really frustrating. And I also know it's probably even more difficult if you happen to be someone who is in a family or in social circles where you're feeling very uncomfortable with what's going on, but you know that if you talk about it, someone's going to call you a snowflake, or someone's going to tell you that you're being un-American, or, they're going to do that thing where they're like, well, I didn't like the last president. Like, it's all the same. It's not all the same. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. None of this is normal or okay. Elon Musk should not have your personal data. So, just to sum up, that's an effort to control us, is to convince us that we're being dramatic, to convince us that things that are not normal are normal. The fear of the downfall of American democracy, that is not drama. So that's it for this week. I'll see you back here next week for That Time a Young Man Mistook Me for Livestock. And if you want to make sure you're here for that, please remember to subscribe. And, while you're at it, why not give a little like just to be a pal? Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.